Hello and good evening and welcome. I am here still in Norton Park, here still on the Clore Leadership Pulse course. I am here still, barely awake, having consumed so much knowledge and learning over the last few days. I don't know how I'm still awake, but I'm still awake just. So yeah, it is day 3 of the Clore Leadership Pulse course, and it is the middle of the week of the first week of the 3 residentials, and yeah, the brain is getting a bit overloaded now. Not in a bad way, definitely not in a bad way. It's a fantastic experience, and there's so much to take away from it. But your brain gets to a point where it's just like, let me breathe, let me think for a second. I'm at the point where there's the kind of, it's like in The Simpsons with Homer and the monkey riding the little trike around his head. That's where my brain is at the moment. It's just like kind of circus music going on, because when I'm not sitting in those sessions and learning, I'm mush. So expect rambling in the course of this video. Anyway, trying to be concise and trying to be as eloquent as possible now. Day 3 of Clore Leadership Pulse. Still has information coming through. This morning was absolutely 100% my jam. This morning was all about strategy and strategic planning and strategic thinking. And yes, me saying that's my jam says an awful lot about me and how I'm not as cool as I like to think I am. But recently with work, I've been thinking so much about strategy. We've been doing business plan work, and it's just kind of as a leadership development thing in terms of moving towards leadership positions. They're the kind of thoughts that come up in your head so much about strategy, about what's the strategic picture, how do you go to a certain place, what's the vision, what's the way to achieve it. It's all about the golden circle, the what, the why, and the how. So having a session this morning was just like perfect timing, because that's all been around my brain. It's all been in my world for the last few months, really. So yes, knowing that session was coming was something I was looking forward to anyway, and it just delivered on every front. It's absolutely smashed it out of the park. It was inspiring, it was thought-provoking, it put a lot of things into focus for me, it reassured me an awful lot that the way that I'm looking at things and doing things is a good way of doing things. I was very careful not to say the right way of doing things there, because there is no such thing as the right way of doing things. But yeah, it was just such a brilliant session. I have got pages and pages of notes on that today. Like, I literally just sat there and just wrote so much. Ellen, who ran the session, is just, Ellen O'Hara runs a session. If you're looking for someone to consult for you on strategy, she's the person to get in, because just the way it was delivered and the knowledge she brought to the room was excellent. So it was fascinating to see where the rest of the room were coming from in terms of their experience and knowledge of strategy and strategic planning. It's one of the things about being in a situation like Clore is when you have the other people in the room and you get a sense of where they are and where you are, and the clarity that it gives you about your position and your experience is just really helpful, because you do so much stuff in isolation or in a very specific context that is just a given, and you don't have that measure of being able to benchmark almost against yourself or other organizations and other people. So being able to come to Clore and to go, okay, this is where people are at, and go, I'm where they are, I am catching up with them, I am a bit further than them, and I didn't realize it, is really, really useful. So it's very helpful to put those things into context, particularly just if nothing else going. It's not like everyone else is in one place and you're in another place. Everyone's in very different points. If you kind of look at it as a line of going, this is a kind of timeline and a trajectory of going right at the beginning to find things out, figuring it out, figured it out. That is the kind of line, and people at different points along the line. and seeing and hearing that there are different points along the line is really useful. Sometimes you look at somebody and think you're going to be here, and they actually go, well, I'm here. That's really fascinating. Sometimes that's their perception. Sometimes to them, they are here because their line is a different length. So their line might be this big and my line might be this big, or vice versa. So there is a kind of relativity to it as well. It's about a development thing, a knowledge thing. Just putting all this into context is really useful. Strategy and big picture thinking is really valuable. And as a leadership tool, like putting those things together, like the golden circle thing was something we roughly touched upon. There was a bit more detail to what Ellen needs in the sessions. And again, I don't want to give that up because she's amazing at what she does, and I don't want to kind of, cut off her legs in terms of potential income. Get her to come in and talk to you about it rather than me, because she's far better than I am. But just that kind of principle of going the what, the why, the how. Anyway, those kind of principles of simplifying stuff, but in a really frank way that is kind of obvious when you really break it down. And think, yeah, of course, those are core ways to look at what we're doing. The questions don't have to be massive questions. The questions can be simple questions. So that was brilliant. We did half a day of that, and I was like, I could have done a day of that. I could have done a week of that. That would have been great for me. I don't know if everyone else necessarily would have been up for a week of talking about strategy, but I totally was up for that. And it was quite nice to enjoy it, and people just go, yeah, you seem to be really into that. I was like, yeah, totally into that, totally into strategy and being a little bit nerdy about that stuff. So yeah, massively useful to me, massively useful to me. And God, thank you, Clore, for allowing me to indulge that little kind of part of me that loves that stuff. So great work there. Obviously, what that means is coming in on what's gone on in the week already, it's like my brain is tapped out completely by lunchtime. I am so full of stuff, and I'm just a whirling dervish of energy and of kind of excitement and caffeine, and my brain is just kind of going. I feel like there's kind of knowledge trickling out of my ears at the moment because there's so much stuff coming in. So I'm like a cream bun where like you squeeze it and then the cream starts coming out of the edges. I feel like that's a bit like me. If you kind of poke me in the head or something, I'm just going to be like, blah, words coming out and knowledge, and that's like what's happening with these videos. So obviously what that means is middle of the week afternoon session can be quite difficult to get your head in the right place for. And I think, it was a bit of a challenge anyway. So today, the afternoon session was about coaching, and coaching's difficult, like with respect to people who do coaching, because from what we did this afternoon, like it's so complicated. It's so much more complex than I ever really appreciated, and this, the kind of way in which you need to be so careful about what you say and how you work with people is, full respect to you for doing that if you do it, because I found it really difficult. It feels like something that with time and practice you really get a lot better at, but coaching is so much about not giving answers and of working with people and helping them get their head around things, and they have ownership. And it sounds like, I think it's a weird thing with leadership, like being able to go, your position is the thing of going, your position is not to offer a solution and offer an answer. Feels almost alien sometimes to people in leadership roles, because you feel like that's your responsibility. Your responsibility is to give the answers and to give that direction. And coaching is like going, no, it's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is going back to what Hilary Garty said on the first evening session on Monday. It's not about having the answers, but having the right questions. And that's the thing, it's about having the right questions, but you have to be careful not to lead people. It's so complicated. The notes that we've got, there are like a million kind of questions that you could possibly use, and it's so difficult to stick to them and not ask the wrong questions. But actually, it sounds strange, if you don't overanalyze it and overthink about it too much and just go naturally, active listening is a massive part of it. Active listening, of not feeling a need to interject and talk all the time, just actually sitting there and listening, truly listening to somebody, is so valuable. And when you relax into that point, your reactions come naturally, and you resist the temptation to go, I have to jump in here. Like there's an expectation. Sometimes you go, there's an expectation that I need to give an answer now, because sometimes you think a dialogue is two ways, and it's like, you speak for X length of time and I speak for X length of time, and you kind of feel like you need to break those conversations up, and you don't. You just need to let people talk. And there were some really lovely moments in exercises today where people got it, people figured it out, and there were moments where you just went, it's worked. And that's the effective value of coaching. Or moments where you figured it out or had a realization of, I get it. I get what coaching is about and what it brings. So it was a real slog. So I don't know if it was, I think it's difficult because of the fact that it was the Wednesday afternoon slot, which is a bit of a graveyard slot. It's, it's the post-lunch, middle of the week thing. Also, my brain's been tapped out massively, and it was a concept that a lot of us really kind of struggled to grasp. So I think it was quite tricky to begin with, and I think eventually people just started to figure it out, and there was a lot of self-doubt for a long time, and people eventually kind of went, okay, there's a kind of penny dropping moment and a sense of getting it. So I think it's something that there's definitely a sense of further exploration and practice and development that needs to come, but yeah, it's another good useful skill and another useful context and perspective to have on leadership. So another valuable thing, and having the opportunity to do something different through Clore and something I haven't done before, really useful. So that was great. And then we had a final kind of short evening session, and this is all about so it's about leadership. And sorry, I've completely lost the words because my brain is not working. So we are talking about authentic leadership. That's the phrase, authentic leadership. And what is authentic leadership? We've literally just started talking about it, so I don't have the answer to that question. What is authentic leadership? Tune in tomorrow and I might have a better idea of telling you. But we just started talking about it a little bit. Now we have homework. We've been given homework at Clore. We've got an exercise to do tonight, and as a tired, slightly delirious person, I am weighing up whether to do it tonight or whether to do it tomorrow morning. It shouldn't be a massive task, but when you're in this moment, you feel like you have to do it right and have to really pour a lot into it. So anyway, there's a bit of homework for us, which is kind of good. It feels a bit weird to do homework. Like, I haven't done homework for an awfully long time, and at least one thing feels familiar is that when I was at university, I do everything like last minute, like late at night or really early in the morning. So that feels familiar, but it's not a massive task, but it's something that I think is going to be, it's quite a personal thing that we need to do. And I think it's going to be, when we actually take that work in and do what we need to do with it, I think it could be quite a kind of a complex thing to work through. I think it's going to be quite revealing, and I think it could be one of those things where it's quite emotional. People always go, oh, you go to Clore, you'll probably cry at some point. And I feel like tomorrow's a session where that might be the moment for a lot of people. So I'm very conscious about safeguarding and looking after people and emotionally kind of checking in with people because of the nature of what that exercise is. So that feels quite a necessary thing, because it's a really honest and open group, and yeah, there's a sense of exposure that comes with that and an exercise like this. But I also think it's the kind of thing that you have to do with that level of honesty and commitment. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully everyone's a bit rested up. Hopefully, he says, having us all been given homework to do overnight. But we'll see. On a completely kind of tangential thing, after that we went to dinner, and there's a sense that the group are really, really beginning to settle in and be comfortable with each other. That honesty that's happening in sessions is really nice, and has some very lovely chats that range from the most in-depth kind of complex social issues to talk about to the most absurd conversations about anecdotes and sharing knowledge and all that kind of general chit chat you have with friends. So that's been really lovely, and that's really nice that we're kind of beginning to settle in with each other. So that's great, that's fantastic, and I think that helps with exercises like tomorrow, where that honesty is going to come into it. But yes, it continues to be a really inspiring week and a really challenging week in a good way, and a week that my brain is just being filled up so much. Going back to this, something from the first day, I'm in the learning zone. I live in the learning zone now. I've bought a nice little flat in the learning zone, and I'm filling it with IKEA furniture. That's how I feel at the moment. The learning zone is my home right now. So big up the learning zone, and I'm glad that it's growing. But by God, I'm going to be happy when I can have a little bit of time that I can just sit around and just watch Netflix at the weekend or something. So yeah, that's it's a cracker, but it's a lot to take on. So yeah, anyway, that is where we're at right now at the end of Wednesday evening. So yeah, it is relatively late. I'm leaning towards going to bed and doing the exercise in the morning, but I'm sure after I stop this, I will have a little kind of fidgety burst of energy that makes me go, oh, I should probably do it now, or I will do something completely different and procrastinate and then find myself tomorrow morning panicking. So anyway, that is where we're at for this evening. I am, as always, rambling my thoughts in stream of consciousness, sticking them on YouTube to see if it's any interest to anybody else, but I'm very honestly happy that I will have this to look back on to be able to appreciate what's happening this week. So yeah, on that note, you're undoubtedly sick of me rambling on, so I will give you a bit of respite until tomorrow when I ramble on again about what happens tomorrow. But yes, I am checking out now, so yeah, I will speak to you tomorrow. See you later.